No intro?
We are live.
We are live in the mix, boys. What is going on? Train to Live podcast number 13.
Let's
with
go.
Special guest, Matty Johnson. What's up
All right,
there?
boys.
Oh, Greg Rogers, Rob Ramirez. What's going on?
I'm going to go lucky 13 on this with hard luck. What do you think, Matt? You like that?
I like the hard luck. Makes sense.
Hey,
What's going on, fellas? I'm happy to be back. Looking forward to getting a good show going.
hey, it's we literally have been missing for quite some time. And I know that Rob, myself, Greg, everywhere we go, everyone keeps asking, when are you guys going to get back on the podcast? The three of us sat down, we figured it out. We're back. We're going to at least do a podcast once a month from here on out. We apologize for taking the time off. It just didn't work out with family and all that good stuff. So we're back, and I couldn't be happier with the guest Matty Johnson, because you know what? He's someone special to National Rescue Consultants. He actually created the term "train to live," and this was 10 years ago. We were at Fort Lauderdale Fire Expo. Myself, Greg Rogers. We were sitting there, and Matty goes, "Hey, I got the catch slogan for you guys: train to live." And we were like, you know what? Yeah, I don't know. And then we sat there, and he said it again. And we're like, yeah, that's the shit, dude. That's it. So
Yeah, that was good, man.
if anyone knows Matty Johnson, he's a fucking word poet.
Yeah.
He literally will take the words and figure it out. So he created Train to Live, and that is what NRC has been built off of. And without special ado, he is one of NRC's, I'm going to say, founding fathers, because he was there from the beginning, believed in everything that we were doing, and he just believed in everything we were doing. So it's awesome. And on top of that, if it wasn't for Matty Johnson and Mark Cuesta, there would have been no 10-year Train to Live Fire Conference. That's a fact. And for anyone that missed out on the Train to Live Fire Conference, it was amazing. We had our very own Rob Ramirez there. He did his Mayday Mindset lecture. We had Courtney Moore. We had Brian Brush. We had Matt Paglione. We had Danny McCauley. We had Bill Gustin. It was amazing. And to be quite honest with you guys, we're going to do it again this year. So we're looking forward to it. And with everything left, I'm going to drop it off to Greg. And then Greg's going to drop it off to Rob. And then we're going to get going, because you know what? This is one of the guys that has one of the most amazing stories within the fire service. Take it from there, Greg.
I'm glad you're here, Matty. We'll get into it organically, like you said. Talk about a couple things. A wordologist could say is definitely described you, and I can see that you're in cell block C there in prison, so you're probably doing quite a few more wordology type toasts and things for people. So, you're not in prison, are you? Right?
No. I'm actually as far from prison. Kind of. If I was a parent, maybe. Went to Epcot today.
Okay, yeah, kind of the same thing. I couldn't say enough about Matt. Like I said, Rob's gonna introduce him, and we're gonna get into his story, and we're gonna talk about quite a few things. But Herbie nailed it when he said he's a founding father. Like, we sat there, he believed in us, he pushed us, and he was like, "You guys should do it," and he was like the hype man, and we started kind of growing and doing our thing, and he kind of went and did his thing, and we'll get into that as well. So I'm glad to have you here, and good to see you. Even though I had my ups and downs, and mad at you, and hated you, and loved you, and all that, but we'll get into that as well.
Of
So
course.
go ahead, Rob.
So we all have our own past with Matty Johnson. Matty Johnson's a South Florida staple. He's part of the brotherhood that it doesn't need to be described because he is that intangible that's the most important part of our fire service. His morals and characters are built on things that don't make sense to a lot of people. And as far as I'm concerned, he's one of my closest friends in the fire service. I looked up to him every single day since the day he went through his issues, and every day thereafter. So getting him on the show to be the one guy that brings us back onto this platform, just so that we can get out there, get his story out, get the information out there, so that no one else has to go through what Matty Johnson went through. Although that's an impossible task to try to accomplish, but at least for them to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Matty has been an inspiration to many, many people across the South Florida area and across the country, really. I've gotten text messages today from guys in New York City, guys in Texas, guys all over the state of Florida, and guys as far as up as Oklahoma and Vermont and freaking Philly and Connecticut, and obviously tons of messages from the South Florida area. My phone right now, I'm looking at it, and guys are asking me why we're late. Well, the reason we're late is because Matty's held up in some hotel in Orlando, and the Wi-Fi service there is garbage. So here we are trying to get him started. I'm excited to hear your story, brother. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick intro. Your intro is basically, go ahead and go to the next slide there, Greg, Herbie. Guess to get that slide off of there so we can go ahead and talk about it. I have it on my phone. Matty Johnson's a fireman. He's been a fireman for since 2007, student of the fire service. He is a big character and a big leader and enforcer of all the FOOL's traditions, policies, and beliefs. He's an excellent instructor in the fire service, involved in fire conferences all across the country. This story you're going to hear today, it starts from day one, year one, up until today, so I'm excited to hear about it. He's currently assigned to the operations division of a busy metropolitan urban fire department in South Florida, where he operates as the firefighter paramedic, and he goes to jobs. Matty does work. Matty's also, like you guys heard before, one of the founding fathers, trained to live. The motto comes from Matty. He is very diverse in his talents, and you're going to hear all about it during the podcast. And he's also currently the coordinator for all logistical needs for the National Risk Consultants Company. So, Matt, thanks for coming on. Thanks for agreeing to do this. I'm looking forward to hearing about 6 Feet Over. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing well.
You're doing well. Can you expand on that?
Funny you guys mentioned the train to live thing. If only I would have, practiced what I preached. I mean, I eventually did, but I was pretty good at giving advice back then and not so good at following it. So,
very cool. Very cool. And G Tasty, I love the strut behind you. The short behind you is pretty solid, brother. You built that right before the show?
Yeah, well, my kids actually built this one. It's kind of a training thing that we do. Keeps my skills up, talking them through. They got it down to a science, though.
Awesome.
Looks dialed in.
Hey, I do have a question though, for Matt, real quick. Just why did you name this 6 Feet Over? If you don't mind.
I mean, I guess the closest to death, or pretty much dead as you could probably get, and I guess 6 feet over just kind of worked on so many levels. It was like I was, instead of 6 feet under, I was 6 feet over. And it was just, I guess, like kind of just a constant reminder that, like, that's what I'm striving for at this point for the rest of my life, is to not be in the grave. Because that last year and a half, I mean, I want to say almost 6 years back, have just been really rough from a situation that was 100% my fault. And and I don't want to go back there. So I'm, according to the term 6 feet over, is just like kind of just getting around in life and not living in that horrible, horrible place where I never want to go back to.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool that you're here talking about it.
Oh, so Matty, we sit here and we talk about it. So I don't think a lot of guys understand exactly your story. So for me, being one of your boys, and I've been around you forever, you've always been the party guy.
Mhm.
So explain to everyone else that's out here. So I'm literally sitting here looking at a chat right now. We got guys from Arkansas. We got guys from Portland, Oregon. We got guys from uh, Ohio. Who is Matty Johnson?
Well, I can tell you the majority of you who met me at fire conferences or anything. That Matty Johnson was an animal. I was a lot of fun to party with. It was almost like you know that guy that like you have the most fun with that your wife hates. I guess I was that, man. Like I'm a lot of fun. I was a lot of fun for a small amount of time. Anything else was just kind of like a stressful situation. Like the people that were closest to me over like I'd say like the past 5 or 6 years really had to deal with the brunt of that because you know at the end of the day the majority of the time that I was out and I was boozing and I was partying and doing anything else trying to be the center of attention or doing what I was doing, I was at the end of the day I was mirroring a whole lot of good qualities and affection that I really wish that I felt inside and I didn't. I mean, it was for the most part. I mean, the majority of that is me wanting to feel a certain way and projecting that, but I was in such a bad place internally that it just wasn't it. I mean, and this started from a long time ago. It wasn't just in the fire service. It was, you know, growing up, I got into a lot of trouble at school. Like I got really good grades, but I was a class clown. It was like an A in I had an A in the academic portion of it, and then it'd be a 3 in effort and then an F in conduct. And I just carried it all the way through. And you know, I was playing in the punk rock scene and doing that and being a front man for a band. And you just kind of live that persona, and it's you kind of make concessions for the bad stuff that comes with it because of what you're trying to portray. And yeah, I did that for a very long time. And the fire service kind of allowed me to do, like, it allowed me to act that way. I could be the loudest person in the room, and I could do all that. And I could just lean on it. Well, all right, I can be an asshole, and I can act like a drunk idiot because I don't have to worry about getting in trouble. There were no consequences. I had wiggle room for my entire life. Yeah, and I didn't hold myself accountable for anything, and it would just be like everything was enough. Fuck it, everything. I don't care, and it ended up getting me into trouble. So,
All right. Well, so here's the best part of it. The fact of the matter is that the four of us sitting here on the screen, we all have a relationship outside of this computer screen.
Mhm.
I believe in everything that you sell, and Rob is the same way, Greg's the same way. There hasn't been one time that anyone has ever went and heard Matty Johnson give a toast, Matty Johnson be at a training conference that people don't listen to. And you have such a great story to tell. And you personally have helped me. And I know there's a lot of things that Rob wants to ask you as well. So we're we're gonna keep here and we were we're gonna just ask you a bunch of questions, man. And
yeah,
because you know what?
let's get fucking deep.
Because you know what? Your story needs to be heard. And I I can't I can't deny that at all because everything that you've went through, there's guys and girls that are going through it that haven't had the opportunity to hear it from someone else who's actually went through it. So I'm gonna actually pass it off to Rob right now because he has some questions to ask you, and then we're gonna keep going.
So, Matt, thanks, sir. Just to before we get into your story and not delay that anymore, we're tackling some tough subjects today. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about addiction. We're talking about near-death experiences. We're talking about self-destruction. We're talking about things that do not make us happy. Normally, we're on here talking about rescue, this, that, the other, technical rescue, USAR, truck company operations, engine company operations, leadership stuff. So all that has got its place in the fire service. But the elephant in the room for many, many years has been the mental health issue, the addiction issue, or unhealthy coping mechanisms that became normalized through the fire service. I've been guilty myself. All of us that have been on this job for more than 5 minutes are guilty of numbing the pain, numbing the lack of sleep, numbing the call volume, numbing the insert numbing here. Personal life happens despite the fire service, despite everything else we would talk about in life. And it's never been cool to talk about that publicly. That persona you present yourself to be in an alpha driven society that we operate in carries you through. Your reputation carries you through bad days. Your reputation carries you through assignments. Your reputation carries you through opportunities in the fire service and outside the fire service. So for you to come on here and share your story with the people that are watching, the people that will watch this, is huge. The fact that you came out of what you came out of, which you're going to get into, and found that you needed to prevent someone else from going through this is huge. I think your credibility is second to none. I can get into like how I felt when you did that, but I'll do that later. I can get into like how I felt when you were in the hospital. I can get into how I felt when we thought we lost you more than once. But that's not what I'm going to talk about right now. I'm going to give you the platform. I'm going to let you talk about your story of whatever you want to insert into this conversation, and let you explain to the audience, not to us, because I'm pretty squared away with how you got here today, but let everybody else know why Matty Johnson is on their computer screen or phone or whatever platform they're listening on. And go.
Well, thank you, Rob. This is very official. This is Rob official, and it's very weird having to have this conversation like this.
You're not having it with me, pal.
It's 100% needed at the same time. One thing I want to get at, this isn't like a hero comeback story, and I think that needs to be established right now. I made a lot of fucking poor decisions that caused me to get to this. So if you're listening to this hoping because like I made this miraculous comeback because I was an amazing person and my drive and everything else is what kept me going, that's the exact opposite of what happened. I got extremely lucky and I should not be here right now for any reason. The fact that I am, I'm well, again, we'll get into that a little bit later, but I grew up very normal. My father was a police officer for Metro-Dade or Miami-Dade County. Amazing. And I think that needs to be said because I didn't come from a fucking shitty home. I had amazing parents. I had amazing families that like I used to hang out with. There wasn't an issue. I was just from the get, I guess like not too much a problem because I was a lot of fun, but I got into trouble for no reason. My parents, again, my dad catch every day, was at all the sporting events. I started, I guess, a little bit young. I started being sadder than I think I should have been. And, like you put your kids on a pedestal. And I think I kind of had like some mental problems that I had to deal with that weren't, because it's a lot easier to say, hey, your kid's gifted because he put the puzzle pieces in this thing wrong. But they fit, as opposed to being like, hey, man, maybe we should look into this a little bit. And that's, I guess, where I started. I was sad. I was trying to be happy as getting a little bit older, getting into my adolescence and stuff. It wasn't like I was always in a good mood. And then I was trying not to be mad. I was always upset and trying to be happy for the most part. And that's where the antics and, the animated everything came from, because it was just like, oh man, all these people are laughing. This is what that's my dopamine release. That's what I'm getting off. Right. People are all having a good time. They think that I'm happy. They think that I'm funny. And, that was really my driving force. I dealt with a lot of acute death early on, and I don't think I processed it right at all. Right when one of my buddies passed away, and again, I'm not going to try to stay away from names and everything. There were drugs involved, and he passed away at a young age. And, it's like 19 years old at one of your best friend's funerals, being a pallbearer with the rest of the hockey team, and then not really dealing about it or talking about it. And then just going back to the bar. I was working at a bar at 15 years old, and I'm not saying that had a lot to do with it, but it did. I'd always been in that culture, but it was never a problem. I think another thing needs to be said, because I am going to dive real deep into addiction. I am not a person that thinks everyone should be sober. I don't hate alcohol. I don't hate any of that stuff. I think that it's great for people that can enjoy it. Unfortunately for me, I can't have one. And it really set me on a course, like a cliff dive off the course, like crashing and burning for the most part. So after that, you know, after adolescence, I got hired on the fire department at about 23 years old. And again, you know, like booze was everything. It's like my family was Irish, right? And then, so that always happened with everything. There was a funeral, we had booze. If there was someone's birthday, there's booze. It just went. And then all of a sudden, getting into this fraternity of the fire service, it was everywhere. We had a promotional ceremony. I had an excuse to drink. And no one looked at you weird either. It's just like, oh, it's a promotional ceremony. We had funerals. We were drinking. Retirement. We were drinking. And then joining the Fools, I took a very wonderful idea and ran with it to feed my addiction. And because I had an excuse. And I've used excuses my entire life to get away with bullshit schemes or anything else. And that's how I ended up. There was a huge turning point for me. I realized for a long time that I wasn't dealing or grieving correctly. But it's easy because drinking reminded me of a happy time. So when I felt sad, what did I do? I drank. Alcohol is a depressant. It never got better. So every time I started trying to deal with something, alcohol was involved. When someone passed away in the fire service, it crushed me. He was like, I guess like a hero, someone I always looked up to. And after that, about a month later, one of my other really, really close friends ended up passing away in a car accident. And I didn't deal with it right. Like, I was different. I knew I had changed at that point, and I started really, really not caring. I lost another one of my best friends. And again, I feel like it sounds like a sob story. This isn't an excuse. What I'm doing is I'm trying to build up where I was and where my head was. Suicide has been prevalent in my life, and I can't tell you how horrible it was. And I turned into a person that was so sick of it that I was like, man, you know what? If someone fucking kills himself, I'm not going to the funeral. Fuck them. I want nothing to do with them. They're immature, but I can't say it's the worst kind of person. What ended up happening was I turned into that person. I didn't know what that got to until I got so low that I didn't give a shit what anybody else thought about it. And after that, like the ideation started and nothing got right. I get to work. I'd act like I was having fun. I get off of work and boom, I was making excuses to go drinking half shift. Hey man, let's get together. Let's have the boys, let's talk shit about work. And then, that would just progress into my day. And go lunch, I'd have drinks. And then everything had to, I could not do anything without drinking. Vacations. I swear to God, you go out of the country, and I would plan the vacation around different parts. So now I'm in this deep depression and everything's going. And now that suicide topic in my head is starting to it's just going. I had someone very important tell me something one time, and it was along the lines, if you do this, you're going to hurt some people that you really care about. So in my sick and twisted mind, instead of sitting there and putting a gun in my mouth, I thought, well, if I drink, I'm just going to die a drunk. Everyone knows I'm a drunk. And yeah, that's it. So I had given up completely on life at this point. Still working on the job, still doing everything. And then all the signs started happening. The isolation at work, me hiding in my bunk room. Everything that they say, we need to understand that there's a reason they say it, and you are not the fucking exception. I am not the fucking exception. I thought, no, that's bullshit. That's not me. We're not special. That's one of the biggest problems that we have in the fire service is we work this amazing job that makes us superheroes in our own right, but we're not fucking special. We still deal with the exact same things that other people do. Mental health for one of them. Like, you hear someone next door to you, like, oh yeah, they lost their child. They're going to see a therapist. It's like, okay, yeah, I understand that. But you hear a fireman, oh, he's going to see a therapist. Why? What happened to him? You have that bravado, that ego that you don't want anyone to know that you're hurting or suffering, which is an innately human thing that everyone deals with. But we're so fucking tough and hard asses. And, oh, that guy's a pussy. We're so afraid of the word that we don't use it. And we'd rather crash and burn than sit there and admit to people that we care about, like, yo, I'm not right. Yo, this shit bothered me. I'm not doing good. I'm not sleeping. All of these things are like, hey, if we were running a call and someone was just like, "Hey man, I'm having trouble breathing," we're going to give that person oxygen. Well, we're great at treating other people, but not ourselves.
Matty, let me interrupt you real quick or slow you down just for 1 second because my brain's spooled up and I can't write that fast. um, Going back to the grieving when at a younger age type deal, everybody grieves a little different. We know that.
Mhm.
I kind of went through something similar. We don't need to get into. I'm not making it. You and I have had these deep conversations about, we want to keep this very like organic, and this is kind of your story, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because we've talked about it before, and you've helped me in numerous ways, and we'll talk about that too when that time comes. But on the grieving side, same thing. 16-year-old hanging out, friend's house, whatever. You hear a noise, run upstairs. There he is. Me and one of my boys found him. Whatever. You don't think anything about it. You start getting numb. Go into the military. You start seeing a couple things happen there. Get a little more numb. Start getting into a little bit of booze, you hang out, you do whatever. And then when you get out of the military, no one ever shows you how to deal with all that. You're a kid going in, they teach you go hard, do your thing, military, charge, charge, charge. And when you get out, they're like, all right, man, here's your cool dog tags, here's your $50, and have a nice day. I think that I think the military has recognized it a little bit better as an organization, and they start taking care of their people a little bit better. There may be a lot of like, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and I probably don't because I've been out of the military a while, but I definitely see this in the fire service about the baggage that you have to carry, the things that you see, and then it's like, suck it up, kid, just go get a beer, go home, and ride your bike. It's like sometimes it takes a lot more than that. You know what I mean? To go and that could potentially be it. I feel in our where I work, there's a couple people that are off the job for that reason,
Mm-hmm.
and it may not have gotten as deep as yours right now, or it still could, or maybe they're coping with another thing. I've kind of lost track with them type deal. But the grieving thing, I completely agree with you on the grieving thing, and not knowing like, it's never going to happen to me. I'm tough, I'm this, I'm that. So I completely agree with you on that, and I know that grieving thing is major. Some
Mm-hmm.
people can blow it off for a long time, and others, suck it up right then. You know what I mean? So thanks for saying that, and I do love that you're telling your story, and we have sat and talked, and you've definitely helped me, man, and I appreciate that, and um, took a chip off my shoulder a little bit and blew some steam off and everything, and we'll get into that when you get deeper into your story, but I appreciate it.
It's crazy what you said about like the older people finally either dealing with it. We're so used to that Vietnam era boss that you've got on the truck with you, smoking reds. Kid, get the fuck back on the truck. It's bullshit. The problem, and I've seen this, is with these older people later. I'm going to say this because my dad's not listening. So my dad was Vietnam. He was a lieutenant. And my dad saw some horrible shit. This guy, I mean, we were handshakes up until I was a little bit older. And, finally he started opening up a little bit. I always call him soft, but that's not the case. And I never saw my father cry. I saw him cry on 9/11 and when his mother passed away at her funeral. One day, years later, we were outside and we were cooking under the tiki hut, and I walked outside and my dad was bawling, crying. And at this point, I was like, what's going on? What'd you cut? What'd you break? Are you having a heart attack? Stroke? And he was just like, no. And he goes, this is just a tough day for me. I just need a second. And he's bawling, crying. So a little while after that, my father comes up to me and he's just like, hey, can I talk to you outside? We went outside and he let me know, and he told me this amazing story, but a very, very sad story at the same time, where he lost a lot of people. And he was just like, that's never happened before. That was my dad from 1969 sitting there and finally grieving with something. Now that could have gone a horrible way. That 100%. My dad's never grieved in his entire life. Now he's open enough to talk about this and have a real conversation with me. And it was finally okay at almost 80 years old for him to sit there and cry. That's crazy. And that's something that we can't have. That bravado, this hiding of a problem that we have should be something that's discussed and fixed and worked on, as opposed to hidden and buried and 6 feet under for the most part. We don't need that. That's another thing with the 6 feet over thing, is this shit needs to be brought up. It needs to be talked about. This is and I don't want to say it's not fixable, but it's definitely treatable. These are things that we can all do together as a group. And it's really just normalizing the fact that we are not special. This is a very normal thing for everyone to feel. We see horrible shit. I know, Greg, for instance, talk to me about Surfside. That wasn't easy for you.
No, it it wasn't at all, and for a lot of people, and and I was gonna hit this up later, but I'll jump into it right now. When I sat and talked to you, Herb was kind of funny about it. He was like, "Oh, Rogers, he was pissed at you, man. He was calling you fuck face and all that," which was 100% true. But I realized that I was so hurt that you were going through your shit that I didn't have time to deal with that type stuff because of things that I was going through. You know what I mean? And I got a pretty funny story too, that when we need to light a moment. But the it was yeah, I was pissed. And then when I did see you and you and I started talking, and you're one of my boys, you know what I mean? So you were easy to talk to, and you were, things I kind of, played with a little bit, like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And you're like, "Fuck yeah, you need to talk about that, dude. That's deep. That hurts." And I was like, "All right, I get it." And I appreciate that, you know what I mean? It's ironically, it was at a bar that we talked about this, and neither one of us were drinking, which was bartender was pissed for the
Yes.
most part, we tipped her, so
It was
it's all
okay.
good. Yeah, that was all good. It worked out. But yeah, I mean, I was up late. I had sleepless nights. I mean, our schedule was a little off. I talked to the guys around my squad. I think we're probably super tight right now. The all 6 or 7 of us, and we still text probably every couple weeks, and inappropriate stuff and stuff like that. But it works out, man. It's a bond that you don't know you're gonna have with someone until you have it, and then it is what it is. You know.
I know, Greg, that me and you spoke about this, that I said one of the biggest issues that I know that I faced when I was trying to come to grips with the fact that, like, something's going on, is that guys like this, like the people on the screen right now, we're guilty of doing that the same way. Like, when you have a guy that steps out of his comfort zone, especially like a boss, like a revered person, like, oh, that guy's like, don't fuck with that guy. Like, he's seen a lot. He's a great boss. He's a great officer, all that stuff. Subconsciously, we're the first ones to be like, oh, man, fuck that. And you're dealing with that. That bothered you. That's an issue, because at the end of the day, all of us kind of have those emotions, but we keep them bottled up because we don't want to be that guy. No one wants to be that guy. No one wants to come out here. I at this point, I have nothing to fucking lose. So I have to tell my story because it's so fucking important, and that's my purpose now, because it changed. But if the more people talk about something, the more it kind of like works its way into something deep, something that you can deal with, something that is a problem that we can work around to manage. We have something to attack as opposed to letting it fester. And I think that takes a lot, like, especially being a company officer, and all three of you guys are in charge of a unit, whatever it is, you platoon, everything. You don't want to be the guy that sits there and like, hey man, this really bothers me, because you're the guy that these guys look to. So I actually have a question to all of you. Like, how do you approach that if you're going to be honest with your crew about, something that you're dealing with? How would you go about that?
You want me to take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been in that situation. I've been not okay over 22 years, whether it was a combination of personal and work. It's never really, for me, it's never really been that one call. You know, that proverbial call people talk about that, you know, I saw this, I saw the other, I saw this. Like, that's really never been like my jam. My jam was almost like, you know, death by a million cuts, by a million little scratches. And it's a cumulative effect, you know, a compound effect, compound effect, compound effect, and not dealing with it or dealing with it in the wrong way that got me going, right? Mm-hmm. So how do I talk about it, Matty? Honestly, by just being a human being. In order to be any kind of leader in any type of organization, you have to be a people person. You have to be, because if you take the firefighter off your name, the paramedic off your name, the officer, whatever branch of the military you're in, you're just Matthew Johnson. I'm just Rob Ramirez, Greg Rogers, Herbert Tyler. Like, that's who we are. We're people. Every single one of us has one thing in common, that we're people. So once you you disrobe and make yourself vulnerable, and if in your eyes these are people that you care about and they care about you because their boss or as their leader, or maybe it's just a human being, if you make it okay for them to be vulnerable by showing your vulnerability and your damage, they'll show you yours, maybe not, but it'll open that conversation to normalize those feelings. Honestly, man, like, I've been that young guy who hit it. I've been that older guy who hit it. And now I'm just the guy that, listen, what do you got going on? I don't have the answers, but I've been there, and it's okay not to be okay. The same way I talk to you when you're going through your stuff, and all our other friends that we share who have gone through similar issues. Like, I'm going to be like honest with you about what I went through, and I'm going to be honest about what you're going through. And all I will ever ask from them is for them not to bullshit me, because the bullshit is what prevents me from helping you. Right? I can talk to you all day about your addiction. I can talk to you all day about your suicidal thoughts and intrusive thoughts and the shit that's keeping you up at night or making you go drink or, you know, disconnect from reality. I can talk to you about that all day, and I don't give a shit if you fall on your face, because I've been there and I'm going to fall on my face. But if you're hiding it from me and you're bullshitting me, and no matter how, I'm going to get tired of digging for it, because I'm human too, bro. And life goes on. It's not about the fireman. It's about life. We all have personal life. And our upbringing sets us up for our future. And so, bottom line, in my arena, as a company officer, I just make it okay for the guys not to be okay. And if you don't know your member's wife's name, your member's kid's name, the guy in your truck, what he's going through, if he's not talking to you, it's because you haven't opened those avenues. Mm-hmm. You have not opened those avenues. You got to create those pathways to allow those conversations to flow. That is your responsibility as a father of the group. These guys are your men. These guys are your friends. These are the women on the job that look at you for guidance, that are assigned to your company, like you mentioned earlier. And it's your job as their friend and leader and, you know, that figure of, it's okay to not be okay within the firehouse, to open those avenues of conversation. Not theirs, bro. It's never their job. And that's what kept us. I'm sorry, I know I'm rambling right now, but I'm just going to end it real quick. We're telling you that my issue was that, as I was coming up, if we do some type of like post-incident or after action or some type of like bring in the peer support team. Well, peer support didn't exist back then. So they call in some critical incident management team for some major call, and they go around the room. They always start with the company officer or the chief officer, who is some salty dog. And they look around the room and be like, I'm okay. Next. What are you going to say if you're the young guy in the room?
You're going to emulate him.
100%, because that must be the way that must be right. So I'm going to do exactly what he or she said. So I saw a lot of that coming up, and so I just said it was okay. And then you deal with it the way that you deal with it. And we all have different levels that we can tolerate. And some people break right away. Some people break year 1. Some people break year 25. So I'm very proud of you being here, man. Social media is blowing up. Guys, if you want to go ahead, Herb, you want to go ahead and let people know in the audience how they can chime in and ask questions real time?
Yeah, well, so go to youtube.com/National Rescue Consultants or facebook.com/Train to Live NRC. Ask Matty any questions you guys want to. He's here with us. This is live. No holds bars, man. This is the stuff that we need to hear. This is where we're at right now in the fire service. And the reality is, no one ever talks about this. Everyone is quick to say, well, hey, you know what? He's just a party animal. Or, hey, that's just how he does. No. There's an underlying issue. And I can tell you right now that there's 2 people on the screen that have had people call them out on it. And myself, I got called out by Matty and Greg and Rob, and sometimes you just need to do a self check. And it's nothing more, nothing less than, hey, get your life back in order. And I am so happy to see Matty be back to where he's at and better than what he was when I first met him. He's a totally different person, which is okay. He's still the fun, happy go lucky guy that goes out and has fun with you, but he doesn't have to drown himself in alcohol no more.
No. It's a lot cheaper lifestyle.
Yes, 100%.
Hey, I'm going to circle back to the Rob thing real quick when you were talking.
Yeah.
I,
I'd really
I
like to.
remember, I remember a while ago, you know the date, I don't, recently, I think one of the anniversaries for the Parkland shooting, when I called you, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was short and sweet, and you were at a bar with with your entire crew after the morning after, and I go, and we were just like doing some USAR stuff, so I was thinking about it, and I go, hey man, I go, how are you doing, bro? And your answer to me, and this has always stuck with me too, and I don't know if you realize this or not, but you go, not good. He goes, but I'm with my boys, and I'm gonna get through it. To me, that was money to the fact that you got to have that support system. You got to have your boys there. You got to have guys that'll look out for you, guys and girls that'll look out for you. Your family network, and everyone kind of knows. And recently I've was a little little edgy and under the weather with little things that were happening, and probably coming off two or three pretty decent deployments, or I was a little beat up, and I had my wife and kids actually check me at the table, and I'm like, dude, I'm a fireman, bro. I'm a captain. Like, you kids are not checking me. And then once you realize it's your kids and they're calling you out and they're kind of like, walking away from the table and stuff, you're kind of like, wow, like this is big. And I'm like, all right, so I manned up a little bit. You're like, hey man, apologize, did the whole spiel and everything. But that's what made me kind of trigger that, like, hey, how are you doing? I'm like, you know what? I'm not good. Like, I need a little help here. You know what I mean? And they completely reciprocated, which I owe that to you, Rob, from that whole deal that went on back then.
I appreciate it, Greg. So it's funny because we're talking about addiction and handling shit improperly, right? We were at a bar. It was probably 9 a.m. in the morning, and we must have had 20 guys there. And you know how it is after shift. Guys have shit to do. They got to go home to their kids. Wives are going to their 9 to 5s, and the kids got to go to school. Dad's got to be home. Guys went home, picked up their kids, and brought their kids to the bar. So there's a bunch of little kids running around the bar with us at 9 a.m., but no one wanted to be away from each other. We have this terminal uniqueness in the fire service, in the military, and law enforcement, people that share experiences that you can't share with anyone else in the world. And that terminal uniqueness, although at many times, according to my therapist, is a hindrance to our progress, right? It brings us together because you want to be around people that understand, or you, at least that you think understand exactly what you're going through at that moment. And like Greg said, that was February 15th, 2018, the morning after Stoneman Douglas, those 20 of us ended up at a bar because no one wanted to go home. We had been on scene for about 10 to 12 hours. By the time we got debriefed and went to the firehouse, stayed up all night, and it just didn't feel right to be away from each other yet. So guys from different companies, different firehouses, phone calls and text messages went out, and everyone ended up at the bar. But it just felt comfortable to be around those guys and see them out of shift, talking about what happened, understanding each other through our moment to go home under the right mindset. No one was ready to go home and become dad or husband that morning at a shift change. We just weren't there yet. We would have absolutely shit the bed and sucked. We still needed some more time with each other to check on each other and make sure everything was okay. So I do remember when Greg called me, and I wasn't okay, but I was okay because of where I was. Had I been driving home to go take out the trash, no bueno, man. To go stay with the kids, no, not good. To cut the grass, it wasn't that time of day for me. I wasn't in that mindset. And so I can totally understand that. But then again, we handled it wrong. We numbed ourselves with alcohol. That's what we did. We drank until our feelings felt a little better, talked till we felt better, and went home. And then, we use that line, and we use it at funerals all the time. I remember being at a fireman funeral one time, and somebody was like, "Oh, how do you guys just like drink after a funeral?" And one of the senior guys said, "They're not drinking at a party; they're drinking to get brave again." And I'm like, "Man, they're drinking to get brave again. That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Drinking is cool." And that tied my brain to, let's go ahead and get banged up so that we don't feel banged up, and that's not the way to do it, because a lot of us go down that road and don't come back. Matty, real quick, man. So go ahead, Herbie. Did I cut you off, Herb?
No, we're good. Hey, so Melissa and Brandon Berrigan asked Matty, how do you address opening up to someone in confidence and keeping things confidential, or reaching out to someone you may know who needs help and it not spreading like wildfire?
So the biggest problem, and I guess which has been, is the on the back, like always in my head right now, is how do I sell this message, or how do I get this message to me when I was going through my problems, or when they began. So I want to come off and I want to tell the story so that everybody kind of feels, if you are in this situation, that you are going to learn from this and run with it and get yourself help before you end up like I do. When I was going through it, I know personally that if I was watching this, and I'm begging everybody, once you hear this, to fucking not turn this off, that I would have fucking skipped out of this. I would have been like, okay, I would have wrote a comment, said hi to my buddies, and I would have got the fuck out of it. I would have gone to a bar and been like, nah, I was going to watch it through my boys, but nah, I don't want to listen to it. So the question being, how do you approach somebody? Delicately. I had a chief officer and a captain come to my house and do a intervention the first time that I went to the firefighter sleepaway camp, and it bombed completely.
Can you elaborate on the firefighter sleepaway camp?
Actually, I'll go ahead and I'm going to give a shout out.
Yes.
I mean, this was a life-changing event. The second time that I went, the first time I went for the wrong reasons, but we'll talk about that. Shatterproof is an organization out in, I want to say Deerfield Beach. And yeah, and they work with obviously addiction, mental health problems, and they have, well, Shatterproof is all first responders. So you've got military, you've got PD, you've got FD, and yeah, and it's a really, really, really neat experience because again, we have that. What'd you say, Rob? The terminal what? The
terminal uniqueness. We
have that terminal uniqueness. So now all of a sudden we're going through a tough time with a whole bunch of people that understand what we're saying, right?
You totally looked that up too, for sure. By the way,
no, my therapist uses
there's no way he came up with that. Not a chance.
I paid a co-payment for that. That's covered by Cigna.
Yeah.
Shout out to Cigna.
And anyway, so Shatterproof, I ended up going for a month. You can see up to 3 months, maybe 6 months, but it was 100%. It was worth it. The second time I went around, because the first time I went around was the wrong mindset. Anyway, that conversation is, so these guys came and had an intervention with me, and it was horrible. I blew up at everybody. The partner that I was with, I blamed everything on her, that was my ego. I was just like, how dare you? Well, I made it about her. When I did, I had a fucking problem. I was unstable. It was horrible. I think if it had to be done again, it can't be militant. It can't be angry. It can't be any of that. You have to drop, for me, I think would have worked if you would have dropped yourself like down to my level. And I think for me, and I'm a pussy, so it's just, there's a lot of heart into it. I think that someone being 100% honest, and I hope right now I'm that fucking person. Even if we don't know each other, I hope that I'm that person that cares fucking enough about it that I'm like, listen, dude, it is 100%. We can go through this and we can figure it out. And everything that I went through, all of the heartache and stuff, I didn't need to. I didn't have to go through any of that stuff. I chose to because the information was there, but the bridge wasn't. We had your army that wants to help you out is sitting right here. You're floating in the water over here and they're telling you to come and you just don't want to hear it. And I think that the only way that you're going to get to someone, like especially in my state, is be 100% honest with them and drop down to their level. And you're eventually going to have to break their heart. And it comes to a point where you have to let them go. Rock bottom for me was when I lost everything. Everything. When I came out of the first incident and I woke up to nothing, it was like it wasn't a reset because it's just going to continue and keep going. But I didn't know what to do. I was broke. I had nothing. I had nothing to lie to anymore. I had nothing to wish for anymore. There was no one I had to take care of. I was out of excuses. Everything that I was lying about was all out on the table at this point. Everyone who cared about me that had to leave had to leave. There was no one to blame for where I was. Then right there was me. And I think all you can do to someone who's in that situation is just tell them how much you love them until you can't anymore, and they know that, and then cut your ties. Honestly, you have to.
So Matty, let's circle back a little bit. And so I'm sitting here looking at some of the comments right now. We got guys from New York, Arkansas, Portland, Oregon, and they don't necessarily know Matty Johnson as the Fools member in Florida and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a little bit of the backstory of who Matty Johnson is. Like, what made Matty Johnson the guy who everybody in South Florida and Florida loves when you were at your lowest, is what I could say.
It's probably more like, why do you have gold teeth and why are your pants so tight? Is what they're really looking for, type.
Well, I can tell you right now because
I love the gold teeth story.
After this entire thing, I honestly do not care. I was so insecure before any of this happened. I tried, I was portraying these emotions that I wish I felt. I was playing this fucking person, and it had nothing to do with what I was wearing because I always never cared about stuff like that, but the emotional side and all that. But I will say this: the gold teeth. So I guess we're gonna have to circle back to this, but what ended up happening is the second time that they told me that this is it, handle your finances. There's nothing we can do. We're getting you comfortable and you're moving to hospice.
Matty, repeat that. Your computer's echoing. Can you repeat that last line, please?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were just echoing a little bit, and I didn't catch what you said there.
Your cell block is echoing, dude.
So when they told me that I was going into hospice and everything else, and I had to figure out my finances, and this was going to be it. And this is the second go around, right? Like, I've already beat the first thing, and now I'm here. There were three things that I thought about. And it changed something that was really important to me. And I guess we're going to talk about that later. But the two of them were my memories with my friends and my family. They were the most important part. And it had to do with the fact that I loved the time that we spent together, and I was upset that I wasn't going to be able to fucking have them anymore. I mean, just everything. I missed everybody in my family and all my friends in one moment. I thought that the memories were so special, and all the times I had were just amazing, and I wanted more of them. And I realized at that point I didn't have any wiggle room. It was gone. Like, I couldn't do like the typical Matty thing where I figured it out, and like I had like another card to play, or I had something. That was it. And hearing those words, and I'd come to terms with the fact that I was going to die, and I wanted more. I wanted more out of my life, and I wish I could have spent my life doing more. I wish I could have, been the person that I wanted to be for so long. And it was, I just couldn't, I couldn't come to the terms with the fact that I was going to die. But once I did, those are the two things that I thought about. The third one was gold teeth. I grew up in Miami, man. And, man, Luke, everybody, like, when I was a kid, man, all the music I listened to, besides the hardcore and the punk rock, but the rap and Miami scene and everyone had golds, man. And they had grills, and I always wanted them. I love pirates, and they had gold teeth. So when I made it out of this, when everything else happened, when I got out of the hospital, I went and I got gold teeth. And that was it. That's where the gold teeth came from.
Did the gold teeth in the sweatpants? Are those the same story, or is that two different stories?
Are we gonna get what's it? Oh no, the sweatpants. No, you're talking about the experience.
Yeah, you got to go into that whenever the time. I don't know where you're at in your lifeline story. I can't keep up. My notes are done. I had to throw my
No,
notes.
no, no, no. I'm not. I haven't gone to the hospital yet in my lifetime story. So.
All right, perfect. That's a good one.
Well, so Matty, I threw up some pictures here that you sent me,
Mm-hmm.
and let's take it there, dude. Let's
All right. So real quick, the first two, the photos on the right, the middle and the right hand side of your screen. These are kind of hard for me to look at, not because I'm looking at myself almost dead, but because my mom was the one that took those fucking pictures. What I need to say is if you are in a bad place and you're going through it, whatever you're going through is tenfold for the people that you care about and you love. And the people, I'm only alive because of other people in my life. And regardless of where those relationships are now, I owe me being here and being able to talk about this to other people for being there with me when it was at their worst. You don't understand until you're out of it how miserable of a person you are. I had no passion. I had no drive. I had no drive to love, to fucking want to hang out with my friends. I had nothing. I was faking everything. And you really, really, really take a toll on every relationship in your life. Like I would, like I go over to my parents' house and, say something to them and I didn't mean shit. And we get into stupid arguments because I just like to argue for no reason because I was so sad and depressed and everyone was against me. It was just a constant, just dumb thing about me making excuses. And so anyway, those two pictures right there, I guess I have to go back. Well, anyway, those are leaving New Jersey, the plane picture, and that's my mom taking the other one. And the other picture, obviously, never say die, which has been my my slogan, I guess, or what I've been trying to live by lately, was written on my hospital wall when I was in the ICU. So, yeah, those are those pictures.
That's deep, man.
Yeah.
Why were you in Jersey? I don't know if anyone knows that.
So beforehand, just so I can continue with the story. So I was heavily addicted to alcohol, and there were signs like this is actually I guess it's kind of comedic. I had to go to LifeScan, and if for those that don't know this, LifeScan is something that's afforded to you by your fire department and ours, and they do blood tests and everything else. And so I was off that day, and I come in to one of the stations and went to go do my LifeScan. And while she was doing my ultrasound, she looks at me and she goes, "Jesus." She goes, "You're a big drinker?" And I said, "Well, let me guess, fatty liver." And she goes, "No, you smell like booze." So, but I was off. Before all of that happened, I thought that no one laughed at that. I thought that was pretty funny. But
I laughed.
Sorry, thank you.
I'm laughing inside.
So
I think addiction's hilarious. Go ahead.
Hysterical.
That's horrible.
So, LifeScan had told me, obviously I knew, when you're drinking too much, right? Well, what ended up happening was I had two episodes, one that happened at work where we had a busy night and I ended up starting to throw up blood in the shower. I went to go shower after a call and I ran out and I banged on the captain's door and I was like, "Hey man, you got to get the rescue to take me to the hospital." So I went to the hospital. They had told me that I had varices and I needed to stop drinking immediately, that my liver was not doing so well. And I had endoscopy done and they sat there and they cauterized where the bleeds were coming from. So I was discharged. You need to stop drinking. Obviously, that didn't last. I didn't heed the warning. I didn't do anything because I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm sad. I'm making all of these excuses. I need to drink.
Why, Matty? Why wasn't that enough?
Because
hindsight being 2020. Like Matty today, looking back, because most guys think, if I start bleeding out of my ass and out of my mouth,
what was I telling myself?
Okay. Yeah, what were you telling yourself? Your mindset?
My mindset was, "Oh, I'm different, bro. It's gonna go away. It's fine." And I'm so heavily addicted to alcohol at this point that that 24 hours when I'm at work, I'm shaky, I'm irritable, I'm going through normal symptoms. So at this point, where it was fixable beforehand, now I'm adding a medical component to it, to where if I do finally say I have a problem, I'm going to have to go to a detox. I'm going to have to do all these things. So these are all excuses for me. Well, I don't want to do that. And once those start happening, the procrastination about getting help starts, and then the excuses start. And then you throw it off the back burner, and now I'm back at the bar. And that's what was going on with me. And mind you, in between all of this stuff, dumb, stupid, normal things that happen to humans, like grieving and dealing with death, are going on. And it's just fueling all of the excuses that I'm making to really, really hurt myself at this point. The doctors have told me, the people that I love have told me, everyone's told me. And it just didn't matter at this point. So now I'm drinking just to get along. I'm not happy. I don't like drinking. The last 2 to 3 years of my life, I drank out of necessity. It had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that I enjoyed, wow, this bourbon's amazing. I didn't give a fuck what I was drinking. It didn't matter. After that, I was back at the house, and I was by myself, and I started throwing up blood again. And this is probably about a month and a half, 2 months later. I call a captain on our department, and I'm like, dude, I think I'm going to die. And fire rescue gets called. I get transported, throwing up blood the entire thing, whole thing, intubated, cauterized wounds. Hey, don't drink anymore. And that's it. And at this point, I'm a small frame guy. When you're super depressed, and this is another one, when they tell you you don't eat, you do not eat. People thought I was a meth head. That's how skinny I ended up getting. And it's horrible. You can't eat. You move food around the table, the plate. And then when you're out drinking, you don't want to eat because then you're not going to catch a buzz. So you're just constantly making excuses. No, I'm not hungry. Now I'm only hungry. So it's crazy. After I get out of the hospital, they're like, listen, you've got a problem. You've got cirrhosis. You've got to stop. Right after that's when the intervention happened, when I blew up on everybody. And I told them, because I didn't want to ruin Christmas, I said, hey, listen, I'll wait till Christmas and then I'll go. Now, at that point,
you're negotiating here.
Huh?
You're bargaining, buying time, negotiating.
So at that point, I played in my head that now it's like, I'm going to prove these dickheads wrong. When you hear, and if you're thinking about getting help, you're going to hear this over and over again, and I did not believe it. But listen to me. I want you to hear the rest of my story. I'm not lying about this. You have to want to get better for yourself. You can't do it for your kids. You cannot do it for your wife. You cannot do it for your parents. You can't do it for your job. You can't do it for any of that. It has to be for you. Because until you're 100%, you're fucking shit to your family, you're shit to your spouse, you're shit to your kids. A half man cannot do anything. You're going to be bad at your job. You're going to be bad at everything. There's no making concessions with this. This is the number one truth, and I didn't believe it. I had all these old timers going to meetings and stuff that would say, you got to go for yourself. You got to go for yourself. The entire time I was going for other people, and it was detrimental, and it set me to where I got. I told them, all right, I'll go through Christmas. 25th hit, I left. I went to treatment, and it started working. I was like, wow. But in the back of my mind, I'm going for someone else. I'm going to prove to them I can get better. I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm special. Got through treatment, got out. Things aren't going well. And I remember coming back from a vacation. Some words were had, and I was driving back to Miami. And you know what? I said, fuck this. And stopped at a bar, and I drank about a bottle of Jameson. And that was it. At that point in my life, I had come to terms with, I started lying to them. Now the demons are in my head. You've got nothing to live for. Fuck this. You should die. You should kill yourself. All of this. And it's just manifesting. And now, but I have that, I don't want to, I'd rather die drunk than to kill myself because everyone talks shit. When you start thinking about how people are going to react after you die, that's a problem. It doesn't matter at that point. Like, you're dead. And if you don't understand something right now, everyone's going to die. So let's try to extend this as long as possible. Because it's a very, very real thing. No, like, there's no getting out of it. You have no wiggle room. It's going to happen. And if you plan around enough, it's going to come early. So I can't shoot myself, blah, blah, and now I'm going to drink myself to death. Go up to Jersey, and you were asking about it. I go up to Jersey to go see my aunt who is in hospice, right? I went up with my father. We flew up there. I had 2 drinks on the plane. Mind you, I'm sober. I'm lying to everybody, lying to my therapist, lying to everybody. Oh, yeah, I'm getting better. get up to Jersey, go have dinner. My dad's really beat up. This is his baby sister. We go out to dinner, and I come back to the hotel. I remember bits and pieces of what happened afterwards. I woke up in the morning. Apparently, we went to go eat at a deli or something like that in the morning. I remember having a cup of coffee. My dad said to me, he goes, you look like shit. You should probably go take a nap before we fly home. So I said, okay. So I went to the room, and my dad said he came in. And when he came in, he was like, you okay? And I stood up, and there was blood pouring out of my mouth onto the bed. So now my dad, and now think about this. This is such a selfish disease because I'm sitting here and I hate myself. I'm gonna let myself die, but I'm destroying my family at this point. So my dad called 911, and an EMT showed up, and no IV, no anything. I ended up passing out in the back of the rescue, and I was intubated, and then I woke up in ICU. At this point, the varices are going. They're trying to stop the bleed. My hemoglobin's dropped to like 4. Everything is going wrong. They got me to a different hospital. One of my captains flew up, took care of my mom. My mom flew up, and we ended up in a better hospital in Jersey. They did a procedure called a TIPS procedure, which pretty much they add like a shunt, which stops and helps with the portal hypertension, which is eventually going to kill me. And that was it. And that was a Band-Aid on a bullet wound for the most part. After that, the GoFundMe happened. And I'm assuming a lot of the people that are listening to this right now, you guys meant so much to my family throughout the entire time, and me. It was whatever. It's hard to think that you guys came together like that, and a lot of people, some of them they didn't know. I get home, I wake up in the ICU, and the first day or two I was a little groggy, and then I had a doctor come in. My parents weren't in the room at the time, and they said, listen, you're going to need a liver, or you're going to die, and you can't drink. This surgery is going to last for about a year and a half. You got to get on the list. You have to do all these things. And so I had to process the fact that now I'm going to die. I also thought for a little bit, I was like, man, maybe I got some wiggle room. And then I was done. Like I said, I had woken up and I had nothing. I was at rock bottom. I had hit it. There's only one way to go to rock bottom if you wanted it up, and that's getting up and moving. So at that point, I made the conscious decision that I wasn't going to go to the doctor. I wasn't going to go get on a liver list because, to be quite honest, I did not think I was going to get sober. But I was in such a mentally clear mind state at that point that I was like, I want to get out of this hospital and I want to keep going, and I'm going to burn everything that I got left. So I didn't get on a list, and then rehab started. So.
And let me cut you off real quick there, Matt. The going back to what you were saying, your loved ones and all that, how they're affected and all that. When we were sitting there talking about some stuff, and I was like, what do you think about, this and that, what's going on? And you said, this was one of the coolest things you said. And I think we kind of said it at the same time, but you're definitely the wordologist, so I'm probably just stealing your shit. But you said people have to want to participate in their own rescue for it to be effective. And when you said that, dude, my head was blown. And I was like, that is so true. That's put so perfect that when you're rock bottom doesn't mean rock bottom. Rock bottom, like you were saying, means you need help. You need to be rescued. Like I'm in the bottom. You know what I mean? Like you're bleeding out of both ends or all 4 ends or wherever. And your pops is there and this is it. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to forget that. That's why I wanted to jump in on there. I don't want to cut your story off, but
No.
if we don't, you'll talk till tomorrow morning and I'll be sleeping. So
I missed it.
Troll you, you know what I mean?
Well, so Matty, here's my question to you. And there's a ton of younger guys and girls who are in our profession
Mhm.
who are living the exact same lifestyle that you are, and they feel there's no way out. What would be your words of encouragement or words of just to figure it the fuck out, for better words? Like what would you tell them to do so they don't end up in the same path that you are, that you went down?
I think that let me be your example. Number one, just look at those pictures of my stomach and my scars. Um, it'd be interesting to like sit here and have my parents on or anybody that had to deal with me. I mean, you guys were there, so you knew, like the heartache and everything else that comes with. I mean, Greg mentions all the time, like there was a lot of times, and I've heard this from various people that are like, dude, we hated you. Like, how could, and it's true. It's like once I gave up, I like pretty much told all my friends, like, I don't care about you. One of the biggest things is you're a bigger pussy if you don't say anything because you've just completely given up. There is nothing what's interesting is, you see a movie, and I know I was guilty of this, is we see a movie and you see someone handcuffed or tied up and they're about to get the axe, right? They're going to get their head chopped off. And they just sit there and they take it. They don't move. And it just irritates. It used to irritate me. I'd be like, dude, if that was me, bro, I would have at least taken one guy out of there. I would have bit someone's ankle. I would have fallen off. I would have done something, but I'm going to die fighting, right? We take pride in that. I'm not going to leave one of my buddies in there. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to go get it. I'm going to fucking die fighting. And then to look at the way I was treating my addiction and my depression, I fucking laid down. I was that guy. That's true. Jameson might have fucking had my hands handcuffed behind me, but they were still fighting me. But I didn't do anything. I laid down. I was that pussy that was going to get his head cut off. Do not think that being honest, and honesty is sitting there saying you have a problem, makes you any less of a man. That thin line that you have between being an asset and a liability at work is what you need to strive for. And let me tell you something, you hiding things and not telling people that you need help and being that half a man that I keep talking about, that's going to make you shitty at your job. If you need to rationalize it about that, you are going to be 100% better fireman if this is as strong as the muscles that your CrossFit and everything else that you've been doing. It's just as strong. You can't just be one side. In this job, you have to be both. You have to be headstrong and, athletic. You have to be able to sit there, go in and get your buddy. Sit there and work a fire for 3-4 hours, come out, hot bottle changes the entire time. That's training to live, 150%. It's train to live exercising. It's a mental game too, man.
Well, so I'm going to ask you this question there, Matty. And where do you think it stems from? Or because it's so prevalent in the first responder community to cope with alcoholism. And what does that why are all of us within the first responder community, why do we gravitate to alcoholism?
I can tell you in my personal experience, which I think is pretty prevalent, when I first started drinking, right, high school, there were always fun times with my friends, every single one of them. Gradually, and on my life's course, I can attribute every good time I ever had with alcohol in some form, right? It's easy to sit there and cope with it because it reminds you of a great time. When you're drinking, you're with your buddies and stuff like that, and you're having fun, you're getting loud, you're doing things you don't normally do. I'm out of the cage, right? Like I'm just going around, I'm doing it. Because it reminds you of a good time. It's a happy place. So then what ended up happening with me, and I can say this from personal, is, man, I feel happy when I'm drinking and I associate happiness with my friends with alcohol. Well, shit, I'm going to start drinking at home. I don't feel good. Every time I started feeling bad, I wanted to feel happy. Alcohol, to me, reminded me of happy times, and that's where the problem started. And it just started rolling over into everything. In the fire service, it's that camaraderie. And so we have a lot of that. And again, we see dark, horrible shit. And we're also dealing with everything else like every other normal person. So if anything, I mean, it's easier for us to become like have an addiction problem than it is like a normal person who's maybe not dealing with everything. And those, I mean, not so much like the blood or gore, but just the deeply emotional things. It's not normal in a shift to sit there and go to a fire and see someone burned or go to a bad car accident. And even like the other calls, do you not think that it takes a toll on you sitting there and telling some 75-year-old man that the love of his life for the last 40 years of his life is gone? That's emotionally draining, dude. And then you have to go home and you're dealing with homework and you're dealing with other stressors like, oh man, dude, the pool pump's broken. Now I got to deal with it. And you know, what am I going to do? All right, let me get back to it. I'm going to have a beer. I'm going to do this. And so I started using it as a coping mechanism. But again, drinking for me, it wasn't like it was only fun times. It was bad times. And that's where I guess that mix up happens. Drinking in the fire service is inherently there regardless, but we don't need to abuse it, just like anything else. So I think that it's prevalent for a good reason because it's a lot of fun, just like it is at weddings and all that stuff. It's just when you start missing that point and there's no moderation in it, and when you're drinking to not be sad because of a mental problem, then I think that's a big issue.
So I'm not a therapist, right? None of us are. We're not mental health therapists. We're not addiction therapists. So we're not speaking as professionals. We're each going to give our own point of view. I totally agree with everything you said, Matty. You and I have had these conversations, and my beef, this is just Rob's beef. My beef is that, again, using that word that, the Cigna got me, that terminal uniqueness, that, this is just what we do. It's just part of our culture, man. It really is. Different branches of the military have the same issues. First responders have the same issue. This is who we are. This is what we're told. This is the template that we operate in. This is the blueprint. When you guys get mustaches, guys get tattoos, you get Oakley sunglasses, G-Shock watches, they drive pickup trucks, they cheat on their wives when they're young. It's a shit show. They get gold teeth. We see it all. And it's just part of the culture. You drink when you're happy, you drink when you're sad, and you're raised in that environment. Some people understand moderation and they can deal with it. Other people are out of control with it. If you get into the fire service with some predisposition to become an addict, then that's going to freaking enhance it times 20. Or maybe times 100, depending on who you are. If you walk into the fire department and you like alcohol, and then now you're in an environment where alcohol is available, accepted, and encouraged. I walked into the fire department I've been doing this job as a freaking cadet since I was 16 years old. I got on the job at 21 and a half years old. I'm 44. I've never had a real job. And I was raised by guys were cool, were freaking mustaches were cool, and drinking was cool, and you didn't freaking complain about your feelings and your emotions, and when that becomes so widely accepted in the environment that you're operating in, it can really get a lot of guys jammed up if you walk in that environment with a predisposition for that type of coping mechanism. You know what? I attribute my ability to not become an addict to the fact that I didn't like drinking before I got in the fire department. Now I do enjoy drinking, and I go to funerals and I go to conferences and I have a beer or two, and I get drunk, and I've been drunk, and I do all those things that that we do. We've all been out together, every single one of us. But I didn't go into the fire department with that. I never, drinking didn't equal fun for me in my mind. That connection was never there pre-fire department. Drinking didn't equal numbing in my mind pre-fire department. Drinking didn't equal that's the way you deal with sorrow in my mind. So I never went down that road. It just became drinking was fun with the boys at work. But I can totally see how brothers and sisters get into the fire department, and then you're given this crutch. And crutch is maybe a bad word. Crutch is maybe a bad word. But you're given this opportunity to enhance your desires that are bad habits because you're in a location where it makes them happy. If you facilitate a bad habit and encourage it, people are going to do it. If you discourage it, they're not going to do it. And we're operating in an environment where all that shit is encouraged. And I'm not talking shit about the fire department. I don't think it's going to ever change. So I do have a question for you, Matt. The fire service going forward, right? And there's all types of coalitions out there and peer support groups and therapists that specialize in first responders and military. in your experience, you are fully vetted in that arena right now. You've gone away to college a couple times. You've been near death a couple times. You were on hospice. You're walking around somebody else's organ, and we'll go down that road, right? Pretty
He's
cool.
a subject matter expert in this
He's a
field.
subject matter. If anybody is, it's him and not us, right?
Sure.
Do you ever
Not
see
the- and
how
it's not
the
the
fire
organ.
service?
It's not the organ I want
Go
to
ahead.
transplant either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're good. So, do we ever see the fire department going down that 0% cases of mental health and or addiction? If not, why?
Well, I think no, number one, and I don't want to sound like I hate peer support because it's not the case, but I want to ask everyone on here a question. If I can't tell my best friends at work that I have a problem, why would I possibly speak to someone who is on a promotional board or is going to be hesitant about me being on the job with them and on the truck or making a game time decision, any of those things above? That's one of the biggest things you have to, what I was talking about beforehand is with the EAP and all of these things that we have, dude, we have the fucking army there. That's there. The mental health army, all of the help you need, our departments, for the most part, across the board in South Florida, have that shit dialed in. We don't have that bridge. For me, peer support wasn't because my ego was 100% in the way, just like all of us. We're big alphas, right? I couldn't get ahead of myself to just be like, I'm going to call this person, that's on the department and as big as a fucking rumor mill our profession is. And I'm going to tell him, hey, by the way, I've been thinking about killing myself. I have a drinking problem, like any of these things. I just couldn't at the time bring myself to do it. Now I have no problem talking about any of this stuff, obviously. But for me, I couldn't have a peer give me direction about that. Now, at the same time, I think that possibly I would want someone who's got, some sand in the game for the most part, like another person from another department. But I feel like a lot of people are apprehensive about talking to people on their own department. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way about that.
Well, so here's my question to you, Matty, and when we talk about it, and you and I have had numerous conversations. So, especially when it comes down to the younger generation. So, obviously, Greg being the senior guy in the group,
Oh, here we go.
he's been in the fire service 25 years, and then I've been in the fire service 18 plus, and then with you, it's always been looked at as if you had an issue, you were a bitch, you were a pussy, whatever the case may be. It was never looked at as, hey, this guy might have an issue. It was, hey, man the fuck up. So how do we fix that issue moving forward?
To be honest with you, I don't know. One of the most disgusting things I ever heard in the fire department was someone killed themselves. And when it was being discussed, someone said, that guy was fucking crazy. Is that a fucking excuse? If you knew someone was really going through it or he wasn't right in the head and no one did anything. Now, as far as where I think that this needs to go in the, as far as like progression or in the fire service, I think that they're doing a damn good job with what they can do. The problem is I see personally, we cannot go to conventional therapists. It doesn't work. They don't have that vetted interest. They don't have the shared experience that we tend to cling to. If I had a horrible cardiac condition, I'm not going to go to a general practitioner. And I think that's where we're kind of dropping the ball and I know they're out there, but I know in my struggles trying to wrap my head around trying to get help, I was very apprehensive to talk to Karen, who doesn't know anything about the fire service, who's going to sit there and read from a manual, who's going to sit there and, analyze me and then give me a cookie cutter answer when it's not black and white. Like maybe talking to, a middle-aged dude who has a different skill set, a different job, that, who's having financial issues and stuff like that. And, I'm dealing with a severe alcohol problem or you've got a problem with a call or just station life or the sleep deprivation. We're encompassing so much at our job that I think we as firefighters, rescue cops, the military especially, we need specific people to sit there and do these consultations as opposed to just a normal therapist off the street, which I think that we are dropping the ball with that.
So
Because you have those conversations, and they are sometimes life or death conversations.
I agree, Herbie. Let me jump in on that real quick. I agree with what you said 100% because they're going down like an algorithm. They're just checking boxes right here, and they have no idea, and they're giving you stock answers. Like you don't need stock answers at that time. Like you need to know what somebody's dealing with. Completely agree.
Yeah, there isn't an SOP to mental health, and we're not going to sit there and run down like a 1 through 10 on, okay, we're going to do this. So he answered this way, because my answer is not going to fit in that category. It's not going to fit in that paragraph.
Well, and the other thing too, and I have no data on this. This is going to crush my boy Rob.
Rob's going to hate this.
Mr. Data Driven, and I
I'm
don't
out.
care. We'll argue off the screen. You can send me, flicking me off emojis all day tomorrow if you want. But from my experience, and this is going from the military carrying over to the fire department. I've been in for 25 years, traveled all of North America and some islands, teaching and this, that. From what I've seen, like I said, I have no data for this. The headspace of these hard chargers are that they're hard chargers. They go in and they get down and they do work, and they're not afraid, and they'll extend themselves and they'll push it. Those are the same guys that are hard chargers after work when they go into the bar, and girls that are hard chargers and they go into the bar, and that because they have fun, they crush it, they're wild, they're good times, they're doing their thing, and then when they go to the bar, they're just as wild, or and it's fun and they're great, and then it turns into, all right, I'm going to keep one in my car, now I'm going to keep one in my room, now it turns into a lifestyle. You know what I mean? And then God forbid goes over on the job as well, and people are looking at you. But it's the hard chargers, in my opinion. That's what I'm seeing, and I don't have a good answer for how to solve it. You eye people and you check them out, but when you go up and you go, "Hey, man, what's the story here?" Now you're the asshole. Now you're the one that's calling people out and checking them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to go with the straight up get up in your face, like, "Hey, Matty, what the fuck, dude? Oh no, I'm good, man. Fuck that. We're not talking about that excuse anymore. You're a piece of shit right now, and I need to fucking dial you in. How do we do it?" And then you start to see your guys like picking up on it and check it. And guilty of not having that conversation with people in my past, and then having that conversation with people in my past, and it's gone good, and then having that conversation, and now they're no longer my friends. It's a coin toss.
So
and any insight on that, feel free to help me out on, my brother.
It's interesting you said that, but it goes back into the point that there is no algorithm for this. This is, people's heads are different. The experiences yield like a different outcome for everybody. The whole like not being friends with someone after it, like for me, that's what I needed to get my shit together. I'm that kid that like, oh, that's hot, don't touch it. I'm gonna put my hands on it. So it's got to be an extreme for me with everything. Now that's not the case for some people, and that's why I said, like, for me, you sitting there and being like, oh, we're fucking doing this, blah blah, you piece of shit. That didn't work for me. That did the opposite. Now I don't know what would have happened if I would have been approached a little bit different. Again, like this is such a delicate subject when it comes to trying to map out a plan. And just to prove Rob's question is like, is it ever going to disappear from the fire service? Or are we going to get better at managing it? I hope so. I hope guys like me that, I don't want to say have some street cred, but, like guys in the department who care about the job and care about the members, say like, you know what? Yeah, dude, I fucking have a problem. Because to be 100% honest, if I would have got that, if I would have sat there and watched this, if someone would have held me and made me watch it when I was coming on, it might have made a difference, or at least I hope it would.
You have street cred, dude. You're walking around with an alien liver. You know what I mean? You got street cred, dude.
Yeah. I
You know, I
bet.
stubbed my toe, and I think I got street cred. You got new organs.
Yes. Just one.
Just one solid
Robert?
organ. Yeah.
Robert.
Hey, Matthew, what do you got?
No, I'm you're chomping at the bit. I know you got.
Oh, you saw
Sweatpants,
me.
dude. When's that come up?
It's gonna come up soon. We're gonna go down that road now. Let's bring up sweatpants. We're about what, an hour and a half into this. So let's get into the actual organ transplant component of your life, and then we can move into like recovering where you are the day after that. So let's keep this story going. So how'd you end up at the hospital
All right.
and
Well,
ICU where I went to visit you the day after you bought donuts for everybody? Go ahead.
that's another story. But anyway, getting back to once I got discharged and I knew I was going to die, and I came to terms with it. One of the biggest things that I wanted to do, and I had a captain that asked me this when he was in the hospital, and I'll say his name, Joe Fox, and his family were amazing. And I know I'm not mentioning a lot of people right now, and I might throughout the rest of this, but yeah, their family, the kids, everybody were just amazing. They through Jersey through this entire process.
Never heard of them. Go ahead.
Yeah, never heard of him. Most people probably turn this off as soon as I mention Joe's name. So
Joe Fox is a beautiful man. Nobody talks about him like that.
and he asked me, he's like, I want 3 goals, and I was like, I'll give you one. I want to get back to work. And he was like, no. Let's start off with 3. Let's start off small. And so at this point, I couldn't walk. I couldn't move my hands. I could hardly talk. So, I mean, those had to be pretty prevalent. I had been intubated for a very, very long time. This isn't right coming off of Jersey. And so I had to learn how to, so I said, all right, well, I'm going to learn how to walk and then talk and do the normal basic things that you would learn in occupational therapy. And then secondly, I wanted to get back on the job to light duty. And then third, I wanted to get on the floor. I had a huge problem because once, like I said, they told me that I needed to get a liver transplant. They wanted me on bed rest. And I mean, I was terminal if I didn't get it. Well, I didn't want to get the liver like I explained before, but I wanted to come back to work. So I ended up going to Hialeah. I found a guy who bought my story and checked me out medically. And I got a return to duty. So I learned how to walk.
Matty, can I stop you for a second? For the brothers and sisters watching from outside of Florida, Hialeah is the equivalent of Chinatown in Manhattan. Go ahead, move on. You can get whatever you need.
With smells like Rob. And so anyway, I got this guy to sign me back off to work, and I went back to work. And this is really important to the story because, like I said, I had a cap at this point. And when I mentioned earlier that my relationship with time had completely changed at this point because I knew that this was all going to end. So that last year of my life, I wanted to really go for it. So I wanted to come back to work. Now in this time, I finally get back on the floor. Everyone's like, dude, you don't look good. I was jaundiced. I was skinny. I was dying. My liver was completely shot, and it was bad. I wasn't going to the doctor, but I wanted my legacy at that point because I had done a shit job of leaving one up until that point with little good things here and there. But I wanted to be better. I didn't want my name to be dragged through the mud for my family and my friends and all that stuff. So I wanted to come back and prove that I was worthy of the life that I originally had, and I was going to sit there and I was going to love and I was going to be humbled and I was going to take advantage of this little portion that I had left. So I pushed and I worked, and the fire department did not quit with being the fire department. And I honestly attribute this to me lasting as long as I did, was everybody making fun of me the entire time. They did not let anything up. Just to coin a couple of the terms, like I said, I was very jaundiced. The guys at work were calling me Matty Simpson, Matty Jaundice. We were constantly eating Papa Jaundice pizza. It was horrible. I mean, I looked so haggard that
we planned a yellow party for you when you got out of the hospital.
God, I love the fire department for that reason.
The nurses were always there. The nurses were really, really funny. Actually, one of our captains, Matt Green's wife, Adriana, she was just trying to be nice to me. She'd be like, "Oh my God, you don't look so yellow today." And, I mean, it was great. I was more ill than the majority of people that were coming into the hospital under us. And but again, this is where your mindset and that mental that shit that I'm talking about now is so amazing. When everything happened and when I ended up at the hospital at the end, I had gone to Wichita for a class for Isaac Frazier's class, and then flew home. And
into the job
conference.
Yeah.
And again, I was still into the job. Now, mind you, during this, the department that I worked for, we were still busy. I had fire, I had extrications, I had a lot of time still in gear. And just to give you like a little preview of what I'm talking about as far as the mine's concerned, I couldn't take my boots off because my feet were so swollen that I wouldn't be able to get my boots back on. So if I wasn't thank God I had to get bunker boots that were a size and a half up because my legs and my feet would swell so much. Towards the end, there were times that like I was calling my mother, crying on the phone when I was on shift because I was in so much pain in my head, my body, everything. Just to let everyone know, when you're dying, your body, you know it in your head, in your heart, in your soul, everything. But I knew I only had a little time left, man, so I was just giving it. I was pushing it. Finally got to the hospital, and when I got to the hospital, the team that came in, well, I had originally gone and got my blood work done, and then my doctor called me a day later, and he's like, yo, you need to go to the hospital. And I was like, what? And he goes, make sure it's a transplant hospital. And I was like, what? And he goes, now. And I was like, I'm eating lunch. And he goes, you need to pay your check and go now. So I drove, got to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, ultrasound guy was looking at me like this. He had those worried eyes. And finally, the doctors came in before, my family came in. And they were like, listen, you need to get your finances in order. There's nothing we can do. We're moving you to hospice. That's it. And that's when I had those three things shot through my mind: the memories and how much I wanted more of them with my family and my friends, and then the gold teeth, which you like so much.
I love them.
What about that?
But again, how beautiful. This is a testament to our job and the people that are in it. Through everything that I would put myself through at that point, all I wanted to do was go back to work. All I wanted to do was get more of those feelings. If you look back at any of my old pictures, like, you'll see how gross I looked. It was horrible. Like, I looked bad. And I still just wanted to be at work. I wanted to be with my friends. I wanted to be with my family. In that year, I felt better dying than I had in the 5 years prior to that, when I was so depressed. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to get out of bed. And I was acting like I was happy. I was dying, and I was legitimately in a good place for the first time in so long. So,
Matty, so you're talking about that you're going through this process where you're told, listen, you have a date and a time and a stamp when your life is over, because this is a terminal condition you're not going to get out of unless we find, this miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, I remember talking to you as you were going through all the tests with the transplant team to see if you were a candidate or not. And the hopelessness in your voice. And I remember you calling me when you got approved sometime around like 4 or 5 in the morning. I was on duty, and you woke me up and told me I got a liver that's coming down. And the emotion in your voice. What's it like, man, when you know it's a wrap? Like, so you have an end date. What are you thinking about after that?
Like I said beforehand, I really vibed with Shia LaBeouf's interview that he did with this guy. But if you haven't looked it up, just look up Shia LaBeouf interview. And he talks about this wiggle room. And that's kind of what I've had my entire life. And I mean, I put myself in that position where I always had some. Like, I wasn't going to get in trouble at work. I wasn't going to do all these things because, like, I could find, like, some scheme. When those doctors looked at me and looked me dead in the eye and said, listen, I know you're a medical professional. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. That's it. You've got nothing. It's a horrible thought. It's something I was ready for. I thought I was ready for. And it really, really, really made me think about all those times that I wanted to die prior to that. And I was in such a dark place. And it was so temporary. That feeling was temporary to the point now where I've had this amazing year of struggling. It was that journey was shit because I was so bad health-wise. But it was beautiful because my mind was awake for the first time. And now I'm like, dude, I don't want to die. I want nothing to do with this. And it was heartbreaking.
Isn't that crazy? In the process of dying, you started to live.
For the first time, and I can't tell you how long.
That's crazy, man.
It's insane. And before that, like, I'd have like these highs and stuff. And I was more in love with the people that like I was hanging out with than my own personal condition,
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, it was, I kind of got to that peace point when I was dealing with it. Like, okay, this is it. All right. But again, now all of a sudden, that guy who was handcuffed by that Jameson bottle, I've been sober for 1.5 years at this point. And I'm like, wait a second, I can stay sober now. Now I want this liver, but it's too late. I haven't got the test done. I haven't done any of this shit. And but it was 100% worth it at that point. I was just like, man, this last year made up for every bad emotion that I ever had. And I'm not saying that every day of it was amazing, because Rob, I know that me and you have talked about this before with the whole being sober isn't happy.
Yeah, sober isn't happy.
So one thing that I want everyone that's listening to this to understand, that if it's an addiction problem you're dealing with, getting clean off of junk, or like if it's dope or booze or whatever it is, does not mean happy. Sober does not mean happy. Sober is a great step in your journey to getting mentally good, but it's not. That's not how it works. When you get sober, you have to understand something. Sobriety is going to make everything that you used to do and have fun with different. And it's going to feel weird, and it's going to feel off. And just imagine drinking a non-alcoholic beer. Oh, it sucks, right? Well, they do all suck, so that's a stupid analogy. But anyway, you have to learn how to be happy again. And that takes you going and doing the things that you think are mundane or stupid, and building that mental fortitude up. Because just because I lost the booze doesn't mean that everything else in my life is going to miraculously get better. It doesn't work that way. That's a step. You're going up those stairs, and that's a big one to fucking hit. But Baba, we got to grow. We got to keep moving, and that's a huge thing. So and that's another thing I want to tell everyone is, if you do make that switch and it is alcohol that's a problem, you're going in the right direction. Do not lose hope. Dude, that's a huge hurdle. And now it's time to get some work in.
It's not a magic pill. There's no magic pill to recovery.
No. There's not. There's not a magic pill. There's not an answer. There's not an algorithm. There is reps. And there's small victories that you have to be cognizant of. If you're expecting everything in your life to change when you get sober, you're going to be sorely disappointed. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact why trying to get out of addiction doesn't work. Because you want to experience that dopamine release, that huge blowing of your mind when all of a sudden, okay, I stopped drinking, everything's better. You got a lot of work to do. Bro, it takes a long time for people to forgive you for being an asshole.
Hey, Matt,
really hurting yourself.
I also think too that you can add lifestyle into that too. Like, guys just think like, hey man, I'm going to FDIC, I'm going to the big, Fool's Bash, I got to get boozed up. So they kind of avoid that, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, once you want to do it, do you agree that once you want to do it, it doesn't matter where you're at? Because you're sitting at the bar and hanging out like with your boys, and you're like, oh, I'll have a soda water. I'm the designated driver. A couple people, you made that comment a couple times, and it was funny, but it was like, you know what? That's so true.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing, Matty, and I can speak on it on my behalf, and I'm not one to really put my personal stuff out there, but you've been a big proponent for me, you, Rob, and Greg. Myself, I dealt with moderation. I have zero moderation. And the 4 guys that are on the screen right now, they all know that. And because of the 3 of you that are sitting here right now that continuously check on me and say, hey, you good? Making sure that everything is right. I can honestly say until you realize that you have an issue, nothing is going to change. And I can honestly tell you, Rob came to my house, took me out to lunch. Greg did the same thing. And until you realize that, hey, there's an issue, and you realize for yourself, nothing is going to change until you finally come to understanding with yourself that, hey, there's an issue, and the issue has to be addressed. And that, for me, is what I think you can give so much to people and let them know that it's okay. to admit, hey, there's an issue. And as I'm sitting here right now, I mean, Rob will tell you right now, he laughs all the time because he's like, I'm so clear headed now that I get all the work done. So I appreciate it. And I'm one to tell you that I'm not going to speak on behalf of Matty, but I can honestly tell anyone that's listening, if you have an issue, Matty's there to talk to you tenfold.
100%.
And he will help you along the way, whatever it is. And he told me something that made so much sense. Don't think about tomorrow, think about today. Today is all you have to worry about. And that never made sense to me until he broke it down to me, and it was a peer who understood what I had going on. And he was like, don't worry about tomorrow. We'll worry about tomorrow when tomorrow comes, but we're going to worry about today. And that's it. So with that being said, I appreciate the three of you guys on the screen because you guys have pushed me to get better, and I love you. So thank you.
Appreciate
Love
that.
you,
That's
Hey,
awesome.
Kirby. One thing that came up a little bit, and I jotted a note down, and I got to go back. The Monica Maldonado's comment about we set up financial plans and all that kind of stuff, but we need to set up like healing and that type deal and uh, I forgot how she worded it. If you could bring that up, um, kind of about looking out for our guys, and then even kind of going into a recovery style plan. You know what I mean? Something like that we should look into. I couldn't agree more. I think we kind of just throw our guys to the wolves a little bit, and then if they do get to a little point, and they kind of self check themselves, they go into recovery. But I feel that Matty, when you were talking about it, your recovery was a little bit deeper, and you could kind of sidestep everything. If you can elaborate on that a little bit and kind of push it, Herbie, look for that Battalion Chief Maldonado's comment and see how she worded it exactly.
As far as you mean, like as far as what I did, we said we did financial. Oh well, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can start doing as far as recruits are concerned. I think a lot of people, when we see it now, like we're dealing with an age that you don't really it's insane because I know we deal with our struggles with a lot of new recruits and everything because they're not as apt or don't have a trade when they come on the job. But they are also very, very more in tune with their feelings, which I guess could almost be like a good thing. It's hard enough for us to connect with them, so that actually might be an okay thing because, I mean, they they want to talk about things. But definitely, she just wrote on there about the financial advisor. I think that anything that's going to make at-home life easier for firemen, I think is just an amazing thing. Because again, like Rob said, he didn't have a real job. A lot of us didn't go to college and pursue like a business career. So a lot of those things we're like kind of supposed to learn, and we do a really poor job about coming through with a lot of those things, or we learn by ear as opposed to knowledge from other people.
Well, and she talks about we do the financial, which we set up nice, but we should also do a therapist, like almost kind of mandatory. Like I know when we came out of Surfside, there was no question that you weren't doing CISD then. We had some personal things that happened to us, and our bosses were like, "There's no question asked. We're doing a CISD, and we're talking about it, and that's just the way it is. If you don't like that, you'll still do it, and then you can go home." And
Well,
and then when we got back, we had mandatory ones that we had to go down, and I'm telling you, it was some of the arguably some of the baddest USAR dudes that I've ever worked with, and ladies in my life. And they were sitting there talking, and you could see tears running down their face, man. And it was like, you know what? This shit's real, dude. Like,
but so take it a step further, Greg, and when we all came on the fire service, it was you were a bitch if you talked about your feelings, and if you didn't go out there and drink with the old timers and stuff like that, and that's just how it was. Well, there's probably a reason why so many of those old guys were divorced and had family issues and financial issues, and we can keep going on with all the issues. because they never addressed the underlying issue. And it's okay to talk to a therapist and talk to someone who literally will let you just vent. And sometimes, as a man, woman within our service, whether it's cop, police officer, sheriff, fireman, military, it doesn't matter. You got to get that stuff off your chest. And I'm not sitting here saying that every call is the worst call in the world, because it's not. But you add on family, stress of bills, stress of family, stress of the job, every single thing just continuously compounds. You need an outlet to talk about it. And the reality is, drinking and drugs, or what the case may be, that's not the answer.
Well, I also don't think that it's you're looking for the one big call, like Rob said too. It sometimes it's that little carpet bomb, you know what I mean? You get those little trickles away and it just starts to eat at you, and it may take 10, 12, 15 years. And then you get that one, you know, that call that Rob had, or the shitty call, and you're like, yeah, that wasn't so bad to everyone else, but you're like, you know what? That's the one that broke, so it's different for everybody. And then that's where we end up going to the bar. We end up looking, whatever. We start contemplating, is it going to be a suicide thing? I mean, me personally, I would say I would. Did he leave? Is he
Matty's
leaving?
gone.
Yeah,
Matty's gone.
piss him off, dude.
Yeah, he's more than having that.
All right, I guess we'll talk about like engine company stuff now or something.
I don't know anything about it.
Either.
Well, so until Matty gets back, man, let's change the tempo a little bit. And the 10-year anniversary for NRC was
It was a good
literally
event.
top notch. We had Brian Brush, we had Corley Moore, Danny Paglione, Bill Gustin, Rob Ramirez. Amazing event.
Never heard of.
And, oh, so look who it is.
Hey, man.
Matty decided to join us back, but the event went off amazing, and we're here to tell you guys that we're going to be doing another Train to Live Fire conference.
Hey, on that note too, with if any of the instructors are listening that were there, I ended up dipping out of there early because I think I had like some crazy strand of like bird flu or something. I'm not sure what I had going on, but I was hurting. So if they are listening, I do apologize for dipping out of there and not going to that final deal. But I felt like I was not doing well. So.
All right, you were good, brother. You did a great job. You guys all did a great job. That event was awesome.
Hey,
that was probably one of the better conferences.
I was writing a spiel, Matt. You just walked away, dude. Now I don't even know what I was saying. And so the other thing too, what's up with that beard? Like, can we lighten this up for a second? Like, what's going on? Like, can we shave this or what? What's going on with that beard?
I actually, I love and I hate the beard. I
like
love it. I love having a beard. It's like having like a whole bunch of mini mustaches all over my face. But,
I like everything about your beard except that little gray spot that looks like you got snot running down your nose the whole time.
That's experience.
Well, so
what's it called? Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said you like everything about the beard. Besides, I thought you were going to say besides my face. But again, I like the beard. I love it. I hate the beard because I love having it, but I hate the fact because if I have a beard, I'm not on the job, and I'm really trying to get back. So.
All right, Matty. We talked about it earlier. Just to get back let's steer the ship back towards the conversation as we're winding down here. You mentioned that sobriety doesn't equal happiness. You talked about your fourth quarter mentality to me when you and I talked. Just give a little bit of insight. Because I'm always blown away by your ability to be around fire department functions, your ability to be around fire conferences, your ability, because we all know what we mean when I say that. It's an environment where, yeah, we're learning and training, but guys are also drinking and hanging out. And you're right there in the mix with all of us. And I never really understood it, but always talking to you, like, once a person understands where they are and where they need to be, and they're okay with who they are and their new identity as a sober person who cannot partake in those activities, I'm betting on Matty Johnson all day. You can be in that environment, and because that environment gives you what you need in order to be Matty Johnson, without having to consider it a trigger. We talked about it ourselves, you know. And I'm a study guy, so we talked about the studies, right? In Vietnam, X amount of soldiers during their time in Vietnam overseas were addicted to heroin. The U.S. government came back, started programs for them. When they put them on an airplane and on a ship or whatever, they got back to the U.S. stateside. Half of the people that were addicted were no longer addicted with zero treatment just because you pulled them out of that environment. So we become products of our environment, right? But you're able to freaking surpass that, and it's not a trigger for you. And you told me it was a pretty good analogy. You told me about the fourth quarter comeback and gumbo. So talk to me about the fourth quarter and gumbo.
Well, the fourth quarter kind of thing happened in that last year that I had, because when I talk about my relationship with time and how I missed it so much, time became very, very prevalent for me. Like I said, I squeezed everything I had in that last little bit, and I was not content, but I was just like, okay, you know, like I love the fact that I was loving life again. And every day I was trying to do something. It didn't matter. If I started saying yes to a lot more things, I wasn't negative. I was, and this is another thing that I think that people need to deal with or understand. Beforehand, I was always in a bad mood and trying to be happy. And now it was like, I was so happy that like, I thought it was bullshit. Like I thought like, no, this is going to fucking fade. It's going to go away. It's going to relapse. All of these things are going to happen. And none of that happened. I found myself like, dude, why am I happy? I started asking myself, you know, why I was like, all of a sudden like elated to go do things. Things got progressively better. And then all of a sudden everything happens. I get the transplant and, you know, is there music on?
And he's gone again.
He turned it off again.
I'm back. I don't know what just happened. But anyway.
Music in your head, man.
Yeah. That fourth quarter. So then all of a sudden I didn't die during the surgery, which is super sketchy. And yeah, like 3 hours in, I got a whole bunch of blood transfusions and everything else. And I ended up, it was 13-hour surgery. So I got out and I went through the entire process again, but I had been through it already. Now I couldn't believe I was alive. And they're like, everything's starting to come together. And I'm like, oh my God. And I thought for sure at this point, I've been given the gift of life. And this was almost, when opening your eyes and seeing my family after everything that happened, this was almost more of an emotional experience than finding out I was finally going to die. I was here, and now I had a purpose. I hadn't been purpose driven in a long time. Obviously, the fire service has been my driving purpose in everything. Teaching, working, running calls, the Fools, any kind of charitable events that we can do. But like, I didn't really have like something, it was just a job. Like it turned into like this, it was just the job. That's all I had. You want to talk about the fire department not defining a person? And everyone's so quick to fucking say that. When you take a deep look at yourself, I was always like, oh, the fire, I don't define the job, or the job doesn't define me. It's such bullshit, dude. All I had was the fucking fire department. All my friends were in the fire service. I thought about the job. I wore the t-shirts. I did everything. I had lost money a long time. So now I've got this newfound life, and I'm awake, I'm alert, and I'm still trying to squeeze everything out of it. So when me and Rob were talking, and I said this fourth quarter mentality, when you think about your favorite football team, and I'm not talking about like a dynasty team, I'm talking about a team who sucks, and every once in a while they have a good game, and they play like shit the first 3 quarters of that game. They're down 30, and like they got 15 minutes left. And all of a sudden, these guys, something happens, and boom, they turn it on, right? Regardless of whether or not they win the game, they fucking get it close, and you're like, God damn, they're killing it. Everyone's cheering. These guys are playing their hearts out, right? And every time I saw one of these games, I would be like, why the fuck can't this team play like this all the time? Why can't they fight like that all the time? Why can't they just be so involved? And I realized that, like, I was the epitome of a fourth quarter team. I had a little bit of time left. I had a cap on it, and I tried to get it all done right then. When I lived and everything happened, I just said, man, I need to really start applying this to the life I have now. And this could go to shit in a second. I mean, I like all of a sudden my body rejects the liver, and I die. And I have to keep that relationship with time, knowing that me and death have made an accord, and I know there's going to be an end date, and I have to take every second of every day and get as much love, gratitude, everything out of it. Just try to grab everything and keep going like if I had 10 minutes left. Keep that same mindset that I had with a year for the rest of my life, wherever I've got left. And it's been amazing. Like I said, man, I've just kept it. And I don't really know how to say even more of it without sounding like a televangelist. And I hate that, because that would fucking turn me off. If I was listening to this and I heard someone being preachy like I am about, live a good life, I'm telling you, living a good life and being where I am right now is 1,000 times better than where I was beforehand. And
Hell yeah.
100% grateful and humbled by it. Just to get back to, like how I go out and drink and socialize and do all these things. One of the biggest things that happens when you're going through sobriety, sobriety has to be number one. And they tell you, hey, like you shouldn't go out, you shouldn't do these things. You should stay away from people that drink because you're going to be triggered. And what I realized was, remember, that sobriety thing does not mean mentally healthy. It doesn't mean like you're happy. If you take everything away from someone that makes them happy at once and tell them this is how you're going to have to live the rest of your life, sobriety is never going to work. That mental health nothing is going to work. You're never going to get mentally strong ever again, because they've taken everything. There's nothing you can go do. You're stuck in this bubble. And I think when you get stuck in that bubble and then a real life situation happens, all of a sudden, boom, it's your first instinct. You're going to fail, and boom, all right, I'm back to drinking again. Me, personally, I thought in my head, after doing the meetings and trying to get these things, I was like, bro, this shit sucks. It doesn't work for me. And listen, I'm not hating on Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, or any of those things, but they allowed a small source of blame to be had on like your disposition before getting into things, which I didn't vibe with, because I'm all about accountability now. Everything that's transpired in my life is my fucking problem, and I did this to myself. I'm not blaming anyone for shit. This is mine. You have to own this at this point. I fucked up and I paid the consequences.
That is the coolest thing that you said. Just to add to that is when we're hanging out at our conference, and we're fire rescue east and everything. You're like, hey man, this is my problem, and everything I did I own 100%. And to me I was like, bro, that's probably one of the biggest statements that a person could make, is that this is all me, man, and I'm fixing it right now as we go. And props to you for that, man.
So a question to the company officers: you have a guy who sits there and fucks up, and he fucks up, and then he sits there and he feeds you a whole bunch of excuses. You don't want that. No one does. It's not going to work on the fire ground. I don't want to hear why you fucked up, or it's because you didn't get enough sleep last night. I want to hear, yes, I did, and now we're going to make it right. It's the same. It's the same attitude that you have to go with life. Getting back to the sobriety thing, if I took everything away, I would have failed. Right. So I realized then at that moment that I need to start living my life again. I'm in a good place. I've been sober for so long. This is what I want. And I realized that if I just eliminated alcohol from the equation, all of those things that I enjoyed doing were still all the same. I still like going to bars and hanging out and watching a sports game. I still like going to punk rock shows and watching punk rock music. It's again, Rob, we talk about the gumbo. If I loved gumbo, it was my favorite thing in the world. The flavor, everything, the blackening season, the andouille sausage, the shrimp, the rice, everything. It was so good. It's my favorite thing in the world. And then all of a sudden I got a seafood allergy or a shellfish allergy. And they're like, hey man, got to cut out the shrimp. No more shrimp, no lobster, no crawfish, none of that shit. I'm not going to stop eating gumbo. I'm going to take the fucking shrimp out. And I'm going to keep enjoying gumbo. It's going to taste different. It's going to take some getting used to. But at the end of the day, you give that a year, dude, I'm still going to be ordering that gumbo all the time. And that's how my approach has worked, and it's been. And again, it's not for everybody. And I say to the people that are trying to get sober or sitting there doing something like that, your sobriety will always have to come first. Do not put yourself in a situation that you think that your sobriety is going to be tested or you're not strong enough. but fucking get strong enough and get out there and start living your life again. It's not getting help with your mental state or addiction is not a fucking death sentence. It could be if you don't listen, you don't heed the warnings. You will end up exactly like I did.
Hey, that's the name of your book, Matty. Shrimpless Gumbo.
Shrimpless Gumbo. That's it, man.
Hey, so when are we gonna hear this sweatpants story, man? Like I know we're kind of trickling down to wrap it up, but I think everybody wants to hear the sweatpants story. I know I want to hear it again.
Again, this dives back into being preachy and saying anything, and I don't want anyone to get discouraged if you don't have like a spiritual something or not going on
connection,
or not religious or any of that shit. Take it however you want. For me, everything that I went through, being put in hospital twice and told I was going to die and all this shit, for me to come out of it and just to have what happened to me happen, I had to think that there was a plan. So the first time that this happened, I had a dream when I was unconscious and all this shit. And, you know, I was in a room with people and all of a sudden someone came out. And the only thing I remember about him, which everyone thinks is a joke, is that he was wearing gray sweatpants and shell tops, Adidas shell tops. And he was like, hey, man, that was fun, right? You guys aren't done yet. And that was it. And all of a sudden I woke up, extubated, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 2021. Oh, my God, I'm alive. Wow, okay, that was weird. You know, it was pro fall, whatever the fuck it was. And, you know, it was just, I was coming off the meds. It was crazy. Transplant happens. I'm not doing so well. All of a sudden, I have the exact same dream. I'm by myself with said person, gray sweatpants again. He's like, hey, man, we're not done yet. And all of a sudden, I woke up. So regardless if that was just the meds, and it was, and I don't know if it was or not, all that told me and all it did was fuel the fact and the reason why I'm on this fucking podcast. And what I want to do with my life now and where my purpose is it was such a horrible thing that I did myself and I put my family through and the people that I cared about and the people that I love, that I don't want one brother or sister firefighter or anybody in the fucking world to have to endure that when it's possible to fucking change and get better. I am fucking living proof. Right now, you're looking at it. You don't have to get a liver transplant. You don't have to almost die. You don't have to ruin almost every relationship in your life. You could just sit there and suck it up and be a fucking man instead of a pussy and say, I have a problem, and get fucking help. That's it. You are fucking useless in the fire service if you are not mentally right. Get fucking help. Get better. Get back on the fucking truck and run another call. But you got to get your head right.
Matty, you're not only useless in the fire service, you're useless to your loved ones.
100%.
If you're a father, you're useless to your kids. If you're a husband or a partner or a wife, you're useless to your partner. You're useless to your parents. You
do not see it until you're back of how just and for me, I was bickering. I was a shit partner. I was a shit son. I was a shit friend. My whole life was excuses. Everything. It was someone else.
And you were a pretty shitty friend.
Oh yeah. Again. And then to be so and again, you forget that when you're that deep into mental, like that depression state. But when you come out of it, it makes you that much more grateful for everything else. What I'm telling you is you don't need to do all that shit. Once you get to where you need to be, you're going to be grateful anyway without all the heartache and the other shit. It's, it's unforgivable. And it is what it is. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm fucking super stoked that I get to sit here and, tell people about my story, and I'm 100% available. I hope to keep doing more of these and keep fucking motivating. And I want to keep this train moving. I mean, this is a crazy, horrible topic in the fire service. I never want to fucking put my Class A's on and go to one of my friends' funerals ever again for something like this. It's preventable.
Matty, you've always been kind of the fun dude, like majority of the time. You know what I mean? Back in the day when, you were doing a little boozing. But now, hanging out with you after, doing everything, you're the fun dude 100% of the time now.
Yeah.
And that's a fact, dude. And I really appreciate everything you've said. You've helped me in big avenues that you couldn't even imagine. And I really look up to you, man. Even though the endeavors you've gone through, like, you're my boy, man. And I really appreciate it, and I love you, man. For sure.
Love you too.
Same here, Matty. Matty, real quick before we sign you off, brother, we want to make sure that we cover everything you talked about today, and that anything you want to get out gets out. So, I know I've done podcasts in the past, so have the guys on here, and you always get off thinking, man, I should have said
I
this. I should have said
something
that.
else.
I forgot something else. So this is your opportunity. If there's anything we haven't covered that you want to get out there on today's podcast, now we can do this another day again. But get it out there now, and then we'll move on from there. Let me know when you're ready.
Part 2. That's what I'm thinking.
Part duh.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I want to say, and this is going to go out to all, and I hope that you guys let your family watch this because I think this can be super important to them also, is you guys need to be, that the fire family is super important, but so is the family at home. The fire service is always going to be there. That family at home, that wife, that husband who's at home when you're on shift and taking care of the kids and doing all those things, your parents, keep those relationships fucking going. Let them know how important they are to you. That, because I'm telling you, that little break where I had, where all I could think about, I was about to die, or they're telling me I'm going to die, were those memories. I didn't listen. This is the truth, and I don't care how this sounds. I didn't fucking think about a fire truck. I didn't think about a fire station. I didn't think about a bunk. I did think about all those awesome times I had at the kitchen table. I did think about those times, those awesome fires or calls that I went to with my brothers and shit. I thought about those graduations, those keen stays that I went to, all of those things that had to do with the fact that I was a fireman, or Sweet 16s. I'm sorry, I said keen stays, but your family, that home, that outlet. If you don't want to get mental help for as far as like yourself, I know you're not a selfish person because you have this fucking job. Get the help for yourself 150%, and you're going to be better at home. And that is the most important part.
Amen.
100%.
Brother, listen, you hit the nail on the head. We have to make home right to make work right.
Yes.
There's no other way around it. No other way around it. If home ain't right, work's not going to be right. Nope. It doesn't matter if you're a fireman, year one fireman, or a 25-year fire captain or chief officer. If home ain't right, work is not going to be right. If it is, if you feel like work is right, you're using it as a crutch to cover your issues at home.
Yep.
Right? You're just dealing with everyone else's issues, not your own. So it's easy to numb the pain. So listen, a lot of the people here may not know that you are the author of the National Fool's Toast. Now, I know you have a non-alcoholic beverage on there, and we cannot close this podcast without the Matty Johnson toast. And after the toast, I want to make sure you're able to add and plug where you're going to be at next. Cool?
100%.
Have your drinks ready, fellas? All right.
Well, real quick, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to plug Liquid Death. I'm going to plug Liquid Death only because it makes it cool for you to drink water. If you guys are nervous or worried about something like that, it's awesome. And you look like you're drinking a beer if that's something that you're worried about. Your friends won't fucking bother you about it. Another thing I need to mention, this toast, I was sitting there with a buddy of mine, Pete Meneses, and his family, been amazing also. That's another thing I wanted to get out, man. If you love your friends, be there for them, have the tough conversations, and it makes all the difference in the world in your recovery. All right? With that being said, in the grip of death, we depend on our brothers. Through smoke and fire, we protect each other. Our calling is clear, and we shall not wander. When protecting life, it's death before dishonor. And here and now, we raise our glass, a toast to the fallen heroes of the past. Tradition, brotherhood, duty forever. For this could be our last drink together. Cheers, boys.
Cheers, brother. Awesome, Matty. Matty, before we let you go, brother, do you want to plug anything? Where are you going to be at next? Where can we catch 6 feet over?
So 6 feet over, I'm doing a talk actually with Rob Corley Moore and Walt Lewis at the Orlando Fire Conference. And it's going to be awesome. It's gonna be really, really hard for me seeing everybody live because again, these people that have been here through this thing, I let down, and it's just amazing that they stuck with me for so long. And I'm getting choked up now even thinking about it and being on stage. And but I'm doing it to a tribute to a good friend, and it's gonna be awesome. And like I said, and we've said before, man, if you're fucking having a tough time, if you don't want to talk to other people, talk to me. This is very, very fucking selfish for me at the same time, because as much as like me getting to talk and do this, it's great for me and where I want to be in my life. So that's it.
Matty, if you need some support at OFC, give me a call, man. I'll drive up for the day, help you out.
Hell yeah.
All right.
I love it.
So, well, hey, Matty, man, we thank you very much. It's this is literally, I'm sitting here looking at the conversations right now. Every single person has said this is a conversation that needs to be had. And hats off to you for showing your balls and saying, hey, this is it. Like we're no longer going to sugarcoat it. we're gonna go full fledged and do it. So hats off to you. There's no better person that I think should do it than you. I mean, it definitely takes an army to handle it. And man, thank you for everything you've done for me. Um, thank I personally, me personally, I think Rob, you, Greg, because it is a true issue, and it's not a band-aid. And I can say that for myself. So I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you've done for me, and I thank you.
I think you're welcome, Herb. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not a band-aid. Yeah, it's all about, it's a mindset change, like Matty said, man. There's no freaking algorithm for this. It's not a cookie cutter approach. Matty hit the nail on the head every single time he spoke. It's easier for me to think that I have to do one push-up tomorrow in a 24-hour period than if you told me I got to do 100 push-ups a day. And if I can just do one push-up every single day, then I can get through the day sober. I can get through the day without anxiety. I can get through the day without intrusive thoughts. So, Matty, thank you for reminding us that it's one push-up and not 100, brother. I love you, man.
Love you.
Love you, brother. Well, so we're getting ready to wrap up. Just want to let everyone know that from here on out, I know we've been gone for a little bit, but we're gonna start coming back at least once a month, every Wednesday. So one Wednesday a month, we're gonna do a podcast. We're gonna have guests on, and we're looking forward to it. It's something that we kind of neglected because of personal life and family life and all that good stuff, but we're back, and we appreciate it. Special shout outs to the sponsors: Rescue Systems Unlimited, Miko Fire, Taylor's Tins, Nozzleman Leather, My Print Shop, First Do Screen Printing, Genesis Rescue Systems, and Hakes. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys believing in the NRC brand. And with that being said, we'll see you guys soon. Greg, Rob, it was a pleasure, brother.
Always, brother. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.